God, that theme.
Kicked me in the groin or something.
It goes in. It slaps.
I like it. It feels like the right time of the year. We're like almost a week out from Halloween, and you couldn't have written a better song, Tim.
Co-written. Thank you very
I,
much.
yeah, thanks, John.
And
Hey, so
John wanted me to let you know that he appreciates the vocoder synth on it.
oh, cool. Well, I thought it probably had some some room. I sent it as a stem so he could mix it a little differently. 'Cause,
Thank you for that. You can actually download that song on Extreme Audio, the whole package, all the synths taken apart. You can shift around my MIDI tracks, put it in minor if you want.
remix. No.
Shift it up a couple octaves. So what are you gonna? Are you doing anything for Halloween before we get into the movie?
Probably be working on a few things and probably try to watch a movie or two. Honestly, probably keep it pretty simple. You know.
Not gonna dress up?
I feel like I'm a little late on that. I was feeling it, but then I didn't have any good ideas.
I feel that. That's
How about-
why every single year I go as a skeleton because it's always cool and it's easy.
That's pretty good actually. And I thought you were gonna mean like, oh yeah, it's cool because like it's people think it's cool, but like it's nice and cool out because you don't have all that skin keeping you warm and
Yeah, I'm actually ripping my own skin off. It's gonna be pretty ambitious,
it's a
but
3 week process. No.
yeah, I'm going as Frank from Hellraiser.
Oh gosh. Yikes.
So we we're discussing your pick, which was the Tooth Fairy. Um,
Yes.
so you want to talk a little bit about maybe what drew you in, and then go right into your initial thoughts.
Definitely. So Tooth Fairy, originally called Tooth. Uh it's
Oh,
she's come to collect. All right. It's a 2019 horror film directed by Louisa Warren. And the little synopsis for it is not Nana starts to tell the legend of the evil tooth fairy who rips out teeth. Carla is sick of her crazy alcoholic stories and tries to leave. However, a power outage suggests something is amiss, something much more sinister than Carla could imagine. And I would imagine that sinister, something about sinister. It's a tooth fairy. And jumping right in, this movie is sort of like that old, it almost feels like a folky tale brought back from, the dead. Is like, oh, we defeated it in our youth, and now it's back to sort of punish us and our families and stuff.
yeah, and it's a little bit of like the like crying wolf type of story where it's like no one believes her, but I gotta say, like right off the bat, the production quality is really, really good on this movie.
Yeah, it is, and it's shot in the UK. I believe it's like an English, production. The same director, I think you had mentioned a little bit before to me that had also directed a film called Bride of the Scarecrow and Curse of the Scarecrow, and I think it's Bride of the Scarecrow was. Were you saying it was probably they utilized a lot of the same cast and locations?
Yeah, I haven't seen either of these, but I was looking, just looking at some other reviews on the film, and some people they were complaining about it, but they were saying that this movie has like the same cast, the same location, just a totally different story. And one way to look at that is obviously that it's like, kind of cheap, but if you look at this movie um, as like what it is, it's pretty ambitious. And I feel like if you have access to this farm and you can create a film that really takes place around this location as well as this movie did. I think that if, you know, so what if two movies take place in the same thing? And, you know, a lot of directors use the same cast in like all of their films, so I don't see why this would be an issue. I guess not having seen those other ones, it didn't bother me as much, but I thought the cast was really great, and I thought the location was actually like one of the best parts. It's kind of like some places, some like films try to accomplish a lot when it comes to location and trying to make it super scary, but I think this location kind of like was like a full package of just like like here's your atmosphere, here's your horror movie. Now make a good story around it and film it. So uh, it didn't bother me. I liked it.
Yeah, yes, that's interesting because that it's a good point when you say it's sort of like a package location when you consider what you could film interior, inside the house, really nice looking house and everything,
Hmm.
and and then like you said, exterior too. You have some really cool sort of establishing pieces and different sort of different areas where you can kind of explore around the house and film. But I as well like it, it's impressive. And it's no easy thing to make a feature film. It takes a lot of time and effort from a lot of people, but this the story to me was pretty cool. I thought it it was kind of dark and brutal and gruesome in a lot of weird ways because it was like this tooth fairies coming to like basically get revenge on these people that are now grown up, and uh, and what better way to get revenge than to go after those that they love? So, um, their kids and stuff like that. So I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool that they went that angle with it because that's dark. And there's a couple moments where I was like, wow, this is some good tension atmosphere. You know, where it's like there's like kind of like that song that's like kind of pushing the whole scene and like moving everything, and then the dad sort of like walks in and discovers like some crazy crap that happened, because it's just like, and when you don't have a lot of money, you kind of have to get creative with like how you film things and how you approach like the villain or the monster, I guess you will.
Mhm.
So what I also thought was interesting, and I'm interested to hear what you think too, but the cover, is a little different than what the actual Tooth Fairy in the film looks like. Um, and even though it's different, I still actually really liked the design, um, and the look of the Tooth Fairy in the movie. It was still weird and like kind of the lighting was cool whenever it showed up, and um, it's just kind of, yeah, bizarre. Like I was a little surprised at first, but then I was like, oh, but it looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, I mean, a couple of things. I think one thing I want to just say off the bat is just in regards to, being as brutal as it was. I think what's interesting is with VOD movies, you don't. Maybe I'm not really sure, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say there's not as much scrutiny in terms of um, studios getting involved in how the movie comes together, how it gets edited, how it gets shot, and I think that is one of the reasons why sometimes you see a lot more like brutal stuff happening in VOD movies because it's kind of like we're gonna make the movie and then we're gonna try to get it. It's like the movie's already made, and I would assume it's very far and few between when when you have someone like chop and screw it to the amount that like BVS was. So I
Right. Or like Justice League, like all that kind of stuff.
yeah, because it's for a niche audience. I mean, these movies, only a handful of people are going to see them if you compare it to like Hobbs and Shaw, which is like made for literally trying to get everyone in the whole world to go see it. So I
Yeah.
I like those little pleasant surprises of like, oh shit, like I did not expect the movie like this to have a scene like that. Um, so I liked that as well. I thought that they did a lot to like um, to keep me engaged, and there's a lot of things happening along the way. We always talk about this, like a director putting in a lot of conflict and like in like the screenwriting and stuff like that, like that's what you need to make a full length movie. You need a lot of problems along the way, and I think this movie did that really, really well. Um, the other thing I also want to just like talk about before I get to the my opinion on the poster was I also give them a lot of credit for. I mean, we're talking about that farm. It's a real location, and most VOD films don't have the budget to make sets. So one thing I always appreciate is seeing like how did they film this shot inside this room when there's four walls that are restricting you from getting that super wide angle or getting, whatever. So
Right.
I thought that was really cool, and you know, I thought the actors did a really good job as well. There's a couple strange things which I think didn't hold me back, but which I thought was an interesting creative solve, which I want to talk about afterwards. But in regards to the poster, um, I'm not gonna lie, I was also a little bit thrown off when um, the monster didn't look, or the Tooth Fairy didn't look exactly like it was on the poster. However, again, the poster test worked. It got us both to watch it. The
Yeah,
poster
exactly.
is sick, and
Yeah,
I
no,
al-
it's
I
still
always
fun.
re- I always remember the Planet Terror poster. Where she's in the middle of it and they've got like the pyramid of floating heads and Bruce Willis is right up front. And I remember hearing in like either I forget if it was like an interview or like behind the scenes, but um Robert Rodriguez said like this was a old homage to like when a movie was just trying to get people into the theater, so they would spend a lot of money to get one really well-known actor like Bruce Willis in Planet Terror. He's only in the film for like 5 minutes, but
Right.
you put them front and center and it gets people to be like, oh, I've got to see this movie. So
Mhm.
I kind of saw like this movie. It was kind of similar. The poster is really well done. It got us into it, and then we watched the movie, and there's some little differences. But I also one thing I kind of wanted to ask you was did you also kind of get this feeling of like this movie had a little bit of camp, like self-aware camp to it? Because that made me
Yeah.
kind of not mind the Tooth Fairy looking the way it did with like cotton
Yeah.
gloves and like a handmade mask because in the end when they fill up all the guns with like sugar, it was funny
Yes.
and they knew it was funny.
Exactly. And that's what I think. Yeah, like what I found kind of like not confusing, but it made me wonder was on IMDb they classify it as just a horror film. I really do think they should sort of classify it as a horror comedy, because that ending, like you said, it really does uh, take that turn, like, and it was funny, and it was like funny in a good way. Like I was like having a good time with it, like um, without giving spoilers away, the approach to how they could defeat the Tooth Fairy, I thought was funny and clever, and
Yeah.
it took like this old sort of I guess cure fix all of like this is the weakness of it, and then they're like, well, what if we just did this with that weakness, and we figured, and then A and B, and now we have a fun, cool way of defeating the villain, and I enjoyed that too. I thought that was like a fun kind of twist in that last like 15-20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, and even like came with like one shot dialogue lines. Like
Yeah.
I even also want to I want to shout out when I forget which character it is, but she's like, "Get away from her, you bitch," which is total homage to Aliens. Um,
Yeah.
so I thought that was really cool. That's where I started to be like, all right, this has to be. They have to know that this is silly. Like even like there's one scene where they're filling up the water guns, and she's like, "Spit it out, kid," and he like took one of the pieces of candy and like ate it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
which is strange because the whole movie is super serious. It's like they do a lot of effort to like build this backstory and the characters, and then in the end, it just kind of like turns into a little bit of like a lighthearted moment, which is when it probably should have been even more scary. But which is interesting because the beginning of the movie is actually more intense than the end.
Yes.
That first opening shot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That opening was really cool. The music really pushes that scene and kind of helps it drive that, bold opening that it wanted.
Yeah. One other thing I also wanted to ask you about as well was how do you feel like about, when these movies come about, especially under such a small budget, um, you kind of like see um, like back in the back before like drones and all that, like all these websites where you can get like stock audio and stock soundtracks and stock footage. You really
Hmm.
couldn't really have made this movie with that small of a budget. But I think what's really cool is like this movie starts out and actually continues throughout the whole thing with a pretty like nice polish to it. You have really nice drone shots. You have really good, which I assume, and I hope whoever's watching this and maybe they worked on the film, let us know. I'm gonna assume that the music was largely stock, um, because but it felt very consistent. It seemed like there was a whole suite that was bought and it was used on that. Um,
Right.
and like the sound effects were great. And I think that boosts in production quality and entertainment. It boosts this type of movie because without that, and if you had like not great music or kind of like low end sound, post sound, I think this movie would have probably ended up a little less entertaining than it actually was. So that goes a long way. Which so I applaud them on that. But I'm curious, since you work in the field of sound, what how do you feel about the access to like stock stuff in relation to like hiring someone who's actually makes the sounds and adds them to the film?
Um, it's kind of like it it gets a little messy because with stock stuff, there still is like the legal, legality of everything, and most of the time you have to buy the sound still.
Hmm.
Um, or if it is like completely free, you're usually not able to make, money off it. And people obviously seem to, not this film, but there's, people out there that do rip sounds from YouTube and put stuff into movies and whatnot. But there's just I understand like trying to get the movie done and trying to make it the best you can make it sound and be, but if you're able to, hire somebody and take the time and get the right equipment to go out and record the car sound that you need, or to kind of build a real type of ambience and background with, sounds that they own and have the rights to and the license, all that good stuff. But I think ultimately though it's just cool to get the film done. And even if you have to go the route of like, well, I can't afford a sound designer, so
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to do the Foley myself and I'm gonna have to learn kind of everything myself. Like that, more power to you. Like I think that's really cool too, because you're not only making your movie, but you're proof that, the filmmaker that wears 20 hats and gets the film out is, just as passionate as like the studio that has 200 people that don't even want to be there.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all on like all on speculation. I really have no idea if, they uh which is one other thing I also wanted to talk about, the streaming. I was just noticing that with streaming services, they try to get you to binge watch, so they cut off the credits at the end of films. And
Right.
oftentimes people are now probably more conditioned to skip the credits. So and this happened to me too. And I'm making this assumption just based on what it seemed like to me, but I didn't have time. Like it, Tubi just was like, cool. Glad you're done watching Tooth Fairy. You might enjoy this movie, and
And
it
start
doesn't let you watch. Yeah.
Yeah, what I do is I have the Tubi app on my TV. Um And so once a movie ends and they do that, they're like, hey, this movie that we think you're gonna like is gonna start in like 30 seconds. Um, what you can do on your TV though is there's just literally like the back button. You just hit that once that thing pops up, and then the credits just play through the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So if you're able to, I don't know like how it works with different devices, PC, phones, all that stuff, but you might be able to back out of it, but you're definitely right. They try like Netflix, they try like all of these all these streaming services to just get you to jump into the next one right away so they can get some ads on you probably and get you
Yeah,
watching the
it
film.
takes away from the credit.
Yeah, I want to see who worked on it, And so this film, the composer actually was Toby Dunham. And he's got quite a few credits, it looks like, over the
Oh,
last
nice.
decade of work. And one film that I want to check out that looks like he composed is called Life After Flash. It looks like it's a Flash Gordon documentary, probably about maybe the actor that played Flash Gordon.
Oh,
So,
cool. Hey,
some,
so I mean that also is it's a weird backhanded compliment by me because I thought it sounded like stock music, but
well,
it's
yeah,
like
no,
they
go on. I'm sorry. My
no,
apologies.
it just seems, I mean, that's kind of like when someone's like, this looks like a stock photo. It's like, yeah, I took it. It's like, that's a good compliment because that means
Yeah, no,
other people would buy it.
definitely. And I agree because yeah, even if it does sound like it could be part of like a suite or a pack, like dang man, I wanna buy a few of those for one day. Like because I was really I was a big fan of the music in this movie. I really dug it a lot.
Yeah, definitely made the quality higher. Just music and sound alone, whether it's from a stock house or not, um, can automatically just make your film that much more higher in production. Um, Lastly, I just wanted to quickly ask and like touch on how did you feel about the casting with, because we always talk about like creative solves, and this
Yes.
was an interesting creative solve by casting the same actors as multiple different people and or casting younger people to play older people.
But yeah, no, going off of a creative solve like in this film with the casting, it's a little jarring to me at first, because you're seeing someone that kind of has the build of a younger person, like in their 30s, maybe closer to 40, maybe even closer to 20s, but they essentially make them up or, kind of like you said, cast them in an older person role and change their voice. So again, I think it's an extremely ambitious approach because one, you're probably limited on funds to cast people and to get different actors. Maybe the area you live in, maybe you don't have like a plethora of actors to ask and have audition and such. But
Yeah.
uh, I definitely respected it though, and I came around to it actually because honestly, it takes a second. You're watching it, and you just go, okay, well, this dude, he's playing an older guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's really not a big deal to me. Personally, I really like that actually because it reminds me of what my friends and I have tried to do in the past. Like, Robbie was playing Jason Thunder, a guy that's supposed to be like 50 years old, and he was like 19 or something at the time. And it's like, well, you just go for it. You put your tongue in the cheek and you just kind of run with it.
Yeah,
And
I
if people
I'm
like it, they'll like it. If not, it's no big deal.
I'm totally with you on that. I agree it was jarring at first, but I'm like able to look past it because the acting was really like pretty good in this movie. And I think that is what kind of like was like the thing where I was like, okay, well, if that's going to be that way, at least the other side of it was like done pretty well. And it really doesn't bother me. I think it, the only thing it did for me was I had to kind of like while the movie was playing, I had to kind of like be like, hold on, do I understand what's going on? Is that who I think it is? Is she the mother to her? Is she... but once I got it down, it really I didn't like I kind of stopped thinking about it. So, but again, I think to your point, it's kind of like you kind of use what you have around you to make this movie. and they came out making a full-length movie, and it was pretty entertaining. So that's just one thing that like may kind of like bother people, but um, I give them credit for just like moving forward and like doing it.
Right, and it's not gonna be an exact reflection of the filmmaking style, but like going off of the idea of like make it with what you have. Um, that really does touch on like the Dogma 95 like movement of the Danish directors that were like, you literally make the film with what is around you, with what's in that room.
Mm,
If the script has a gun in it, but you don't have a gun in the room, then you're not gonna have a gun in the movie. Like that's literally what you would do.
mm.
Um, and so, or at least that's the way I learned it. I could be wrong, honestly. But that was kind of how I like. It was more of like it seemed that it was more of a minimal kind of approach in terms of okay, yeah, I found a little link, but yeah, shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. Sound must never be produced apart from the images or vice versa. So it was super on set, like
That's
sound.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 10 rules and such, but I mean, you can check that out at some point. But that does remind me of that though, and low budget filmmaking in general kind of has to borrow from that movement of filmmaking often, because a lot of the time you don't have the luxury of like, well, shoot, we need another phone to throw at a wall for this scene because the guy freaks out and breaks his phone. Like, you can't do those things, even though
Yeah, yeah.
and so uh I applaud this movie because they really did go for it, and um that's a tough story to tell, and they did a really good job, I think.
I agree. I agree. Really, really good choice. Tooth
And I
Fairy.
gotta say, real quick shout out, there was a part in the film, I'm gonna remind you of it, where there's a vlogger talking about the Tooth Fairy on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know who that is?
Sean C. Phillips.
Yeah, dude, Sean C. Phillips. And I just wanted to shout him out because I recently uh, have met Sean over the summer, worked on a couple of films with him.
Oh,
And
nice.
he's a really good guy, great actor. And just, yeah, I'm excited to see, when we watch these movies, we're probably going to see him more because he works hard and he shows up in a lot of films. And I just watched Ouija's, the new Full Moon film, this past week, and he had a cool little cameo in that movie too. So I was like, oh man, that's so cool seeing him in all this stuff.
Yeah, he's been very active in the VOD scene for a long time. And I think like he's really owned up to that and like really like kind of just rolled with it. And I've seen him in a couple movies too. I can't remember what I've seen him in, but um and I think that guy Brendan was also in a couple of VOD movies too. Wet
Right.
Movie 1.
Yeah, right. Both of them, they've had their YouTube channels and followings for quite a while, and it's cool though to see their successes as well. Seeing them not only just have the YouTube stuff, but also to be in films that you're gonna watch at home and buy on DVD and stuff. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
that's
that's
super
awesome.
super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really surprised with that too. Um, Really good choice, Matt.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And do you have one for the next episode?
I do. I do. Um, Dug around on Tubi. Uh, there's a bunch of stuff I want to watch, but I figured we haven't really done what I assume, my guess, based on the synopsis, I assume this is going to be a found footage movie. So it's called Always Watching, a Marble Hornet story. So it looks to me, here's the synopsis. After watching disturbing tapes in an abandoned house, a small town news crew finds themselves terrorized by a faceless figure in a dark suit. So looks like this is going to be one of those, Slender Man craze movies that everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon to make. Um, Little known fact, I haven't watched any of those movies, so I know about the Slender Man, but I'm excited to give this one a shot. I think found footage could lend
Oh,
itself very much to the Slender Man, like because it's pretty
oh
scary.
yeah. I love that, dude. Great pick. I'm looking at the cover right now. It's gripped me. It's holding me by the throat. I'm gonna watch it. Um, that's super cool, man. This is I as well. I'm gonna have to tell you the truth here. I have not watched any Slenderman films.
Me either. I remember when there was one of those movies that came into like major theaters, but at the same time, a little
Yeah,
bit
that was
before that, everyone seemed to be making Slender Man films.
right. Yeah, that was only a year or two ago that the theater one came out. I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Oh, you know what I just
So
noticed here that I'm really excited about is this film is fourth name listed starring is Doug Jones. I wonder what character he's playing.
why do I know who that guy is?
Oh, you know who he is. Just look him up real quick. You'll be like, oh, of course, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. Dougie Jones?
Doug Jones. It's Doug Jones.
Oh, wow.
He is like
He's
the creature monster actor, you know?
Oh, did he play the fish in Hellboy?
Yes, he did.
Oh. Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah,
Sweet.
just go browse his IMDb. He's in like everything.
Hey, I
He's
mean
awesome.
this movie, Always Watching, is if you look on Google, it goes through all like the major films. You get Batman Returns, Legion, sick movie by the way, Men in Black 2, Falling Skies, The Strain, Benchwarmers, and then boom, Always Watching. It's above Lady in the Water, Ouija, Origin of Evil. So maybe this movie, that's
Wow.
cool. I'm excited.
Oh, hold up here. Let me check this out.
He's an
Yeah,
adaptation.
dude, that's cool, man. Yeah, film was released on video on demand April 7th, 2015, and select theaters May 15th, 2015. I mean,
Sweet.
select theaters. This is a VOD film, so it had its premiere VOD. So
Awesome.
I'm calling this I'm very excited for it.
Always Watching, a Marble Hornet story. Matt, I hope it releases you from your throat. 'Cause said it was grabbing you by the throat. Hope you can get it out of the grips.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to start it soon. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks for picking Tooth Fairy. I had a great time with it. Um,
Thanks. No, thank you, man. I'm excited to watch Always Watching. I'll always be watching, always watching.
you guys can also watch. I believe you can check out Tooth Fairy not only on Tubi, but I think right now it's also on Prime Video as well.
I believe that's correct.
So check it out. Let us know what you think.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, well, thanks again for having me. I'm gonna get watching, and we can always watch this.
This sounds good. Um,
Sweet,
Marble Hornets. All right.
sweet. Thanks again. You have a good day, man.
You too.
Bye.
See ya.